Welcome to a presentation on neoclassical physics. Neophysics has the most accurate theories of physics. We challenge you to disprove us, else join us and profit from the new science. In this presentation, we are going to counter Einstein's equivalence principle. In a sense, this idea or this principle leads to the geometrization of the concept of gravitational force field. We would, in future presentations, present less mysterious theory of the origin of gravitational force without the exotic bending of space-time fabric. In what he himself described as the happiest thought ever, he imagined a frame of reference fixed to the free-falling elevator. If a person in this frame, free-falling elevator, drops an object he is holding, then he won't see the object fall down, but it will be floating along with him. For that person doing this experiment in the elevator, it will feel like he is in an inertial frame in free space. Einstein generalized this observation into what is known as the equivalence principle. However, the generalization is false. According to Einstein's equivalence principle, 1. A frame of reference experiencing free fall due to gravity is equivalent to an inertial frame of reference in free space, far away from any gravitational influence. And a frame at rest on the surface of a massive object experiencing gravity is equivalent to a frame in free space being accelerated with uniform acceleration in the opposite direction. Here we describe an obvious experiment or situation which prove these two statements of equivalence principle wrong. Ever since Newton synthesized the works of Kepler and Galileo as the universal law of gravity, we know that if we throw tiny objects at different velocities on the surface of a massive object like Earth, they achieve different shapes of trajectories and orbits around the massive object. In the very low velocity limit, the object just falls down close to the place where it was released. At the right velocity, it can also achieve a perfect circular orbit. If the mass of the larger object is m, big M, and it is spherical with radius r, big R, then at velocity v equals square root of gm by r, we get circular orbits. Here big G is universal gravitational constant. On the Earth's surface, this v is 7.9 kilometers per second. No matter how large the radius of the massive object is, and how tiny the experimental apparatus is, there will always exist different types of orbits, depending on the given energy and angular momentum values. For masses with irregular shapes, the calculation becomes difficult. So we consider the simpler case of a spherical massive object. The local results we get in this case can be qualitatively extended to objects of any shape and size. Ultimately, gravity has to be associated with a finite mass of a finite size. And these finite values will be associated with a finite velocity value like v equals square root of gm by r, which separates the low energy regime from the high energy regime. And behavior in the high energy regime will be different from the behavior in the low energy regime, even locally or in local experiments. Here, local experiments means very short distance range experiments or very short time interval experiments. So let us consider that the experiments we do here have time intervals very close to 0. It is like we are located in this tiny box here and doing the whole experiment. Assume this box is located right at the site of the experiment. Here we describe experiment as seen from a frame at rest with respect to the center of mass of this massive object. This we can also call as the stationary frame. In the low velocity limit, the trajectories appear parabolic. Actually, they are part of highly eccentric ellipses, which only appear parabolic over a short range. These x and z equations show the time evolution of the objects we throw around within our tiny box lab here. We get parabolic trajectories when v is much smaller than square root of gm by r. We see a force-free motion along the x-axis, that is constant velocity. X velocity is constant, and along the z-axis we see a free fall with an acceleration of gm by r square. When velocity is exactly v equals square root of gm by r, we get circular orbit solution with respect to the stationary frame. We see a constant velocity motion along the x-axis, but along z-axis or the vertical direction, we see that the object is not moving. It maintains a constant height, z equals r, without moving up or down over this very short range time interval. This is what we see within the tiny box lab at the surface, at rest at the surface. And it is at rest with respect to the center of mass of this massive object. Let us now look at the same experiments, same trajectories that we saw in the previous slide, but this time we see them from a frame which is in free fall. Suppose that tiny box here is in free fall now, instead of being at rest as in the previous case. That is, it is falling down with an acceleration gm by r square, accelerating towards the center of the mass of this massive object. This is the elevator thought experiment of Einstein. In the low velocity limit, the original parabolic trajectories now appear as straight line motion with constant velocity. Since both the frame of reference, that is this box, and the object under observation from the box are in free fall with respect to the center of mass, with respect to each other, they do not see any motion along the z-axis. The height of the object remains constant with respect to the falling frame, that is z equals r equals constant. It appears as if we are seeing a constant velocity object from an inertial frame. Einstein thought this can be generalized for all velocities. That is, it would be true both at low velocity or low energy range and high energy range. When velocity is exactly v equals square root of gm by r, the original circular orbits now appear as overturned parabolas. That is, the objects appear as rising up with an acceleration of gm by r square meter per second square. Of course, from within the frame, this tiny box, we cannot make out what is up or what is down. We just see a parabolic trajectory due to this acceleration term. Since an object which is stationary, which has stationary height with respect to the center of mass is being seen from a falling frame, the object appears to be rising up with respect to the falling frame. Let us summarize and put the observations made from both the frames together. These are the observations made from the stationary frame or the frame at rest with respect to the center of mass of the massive object. And these are the observations made from the free-falling frame. The original circular orbit trajectory, when seen from a free-falling frame, appears as a parabola, with objects rising up within the frame of reference. We can easily measure this acceleration within our frame of reference. This trajectory proves that a free-falling frame is not equivalent to an inertial frame, because these objects appear rising up with an acceleration gm by r square meter per second square. It is because an accelerating frame is looking at a non-accelerating object. If this frame, the falling frame, was equivalent to an inertial frame in free space, then all the trajectories we create within the frame, no matter how high or low the velocity is, it must have a straight line motion with uniform velocity, like how these parabolic trajectories appear from a free falling frame. Since at some initial velocity conditions, we can measure this acceleration even without providing any fuel source for the accelerating object, we can conclude that our frame is not an inertial frame. There are some forces acting on the frame and we can measure the acceleration created by it. Let us now compare the stationary frame observation with the observation made from an accelerating frame. That is, this frame is at rest but under the gravitational influence of the massive object, whereas this frame is being accelerated with a uniform acceleration. Assume this frame is attached to a rocket engine or some engine which gives it the acceleration by burning some fuel. In the frame accelerated by the engines, we only see parabolic trajectories. There is no scope for seeing any circular or elliptic orbit trajectories. However, from this stationary frame, we can see circular and elliptic orbits. Over a very short range, the circular orbits appear as this force-free straight line motion from the frame at rest. This trajectory proves that a frame at rest on the surface of the massive object is not equivalent to an accelerating frame in free space, because we see non-parabolic trajectories under some case of velocities. Therefore, these two situations with high velocity range disprove the equivalence principle completely. That is, seeing a circular orbit trajectory or a small portion of the trajectory from a stationary frame disproves the second statement about equivalence principle that we saw earlier. It states that a frame at rest on the surface of the massive object under its gravity must be equivalent to an accelerating frame in free space. But in an accelerating frame, we only get parabolic trajectories at all initial velocity conditions. Hence, this non-parabolic trajectory found in the rest frame under gravity disproves the assumed equivalence. Similarly, seeing these accelerated trajectories from a free-falling frame disproves the first statement of equivalence that we saw earlier. According to equivalence principle, a free-falling frame is equivalent to an inertial frame in free space. This trajectory proves that a free-falling frame is not equivalent to an inertial frame because these objects have accelerated motion. If they were equivalent to the inertial frame, we should only see straight line motion with uniform velocity at all velocity range. Therefore, Einstein's equivalence principle is not valid even locally over very short distances and very short time intervals experiments. Einstein only considered experiments involving very low energy or very low velocity parabolic orbits in his Gedanken. But at higher energies and higher velocities, we can notice the equivalence is not valid. This effect is not like the higher order tidal forces, which can be ignored by assuming the scale of the experiments as too small to observe tidal effects. However, the existence of different types of orbits, the parabolic, circular, elliptic, hyperbolic, orbits is a first order effect which cannot be ignored even over short distances and short intervals, time intervals, local experiments. That is, if we can measure the accelerations locally, we cannot ignore it. Thus, using any high energy or high velocity orbit, we can differentiate between 1. A frame of reference experiencing free fall due to gravity from an inertial frame of reference in free space, and 2. A frame of reference at rest on the surface of a massive object from a frame in free space being uniformly accelerated. Therefore, equivalence principle is wrong. Apart from the experiment with high energy trajectories described here, we can use another method to differentiate between the frames in the second statement. This new method gives insights about the mechanism of gravitational force. We shall explore that in a future presentation. Einstein's math developed relying on equivalence principle may not be that useful in a proper theory of gravity. However, this statement by him might still be useful in a qualitative sense. That is, according to the general theory of relativity, space is endowed with physical qualities. In this sense, therefore, there exists an ether. He told this in 1920. Possibly, we might need to assume the existence of a material medium that mediates or creates the force of gravity between objects. We end this presentation here. Thank you. If you want to understand the concepts of physics in the clearest way, regardless of the concerns about scoring high marks in exams, please visit neophysics.com. Thank you again.